Hi everyone. Today we're going to look at motion tracking, as is a useful technique often for creating title sequences. I put together just a very quick example here. I want to show what we're going to be looking at today. So let's take a look. Alright, so by my standards, it's a little sloppy. However, we get the point across. We see another scene from Andor, continuing the theme using the show Andor for the title sequence. And we have a line and text appear with the actor's name that follows the position of his head. Okay? That is done with motion tracking directly in After Effects. So we're going to look at that from scratch today. This is something as you are making titles and credits and other things that can be useful for these title sequences, not just to follow an actor or something. There's other things you can do with it, but we're just going to look at the basics right now. So I'm going to go ahead and delete everything. Actually, no, I'll just make a new composition. We'll start from scratch here. And I'm going to use 1920 by 1080 because that is what the video is, HD. And I already have the video here, so I'm going to click and drag it down to the timeline. And now I have to find where in this video clip where we see that scene with him walking up here. So it starts about right here. I'm just going to go right to the beginning. And then with that layer selected, I'm going to press Command-Shift-D, which splits up the layer. I can delete the beginning, and now I can see where exactly to put the start of it. So we go here, and I'm just going to go to where it ends, about right here. Press Command-Shift-D again, splits it, and I can delete the back half of that video clip. And now I'm left with just the part that I want. And I'm going to change the playback area so that when it gets to the end, it just loops back to the beginning. Okay, so we have the video the way we want it. Now I'm going to click to select the video, and you're gonna look for a tracker over here on the right side. If you don't see this window, you can go up to Window and then click on Tracker. Go ahead and look for Tracker, click on it, and then with the video selected, go ahead and press Track Motion. When I do that, you'll notice it opens up the actual layer itself, and I get these boxes here, and it says Track Points 1. So I would recommend zooming in, and a quick caveat here, this is not going to work well with every video in every situation. It really needs contrast, high contrast, so that it can clearly see the definition of the object that you are trying to track. If things are too low contrast, too muddy, too dark, or too bright, it's not going to do a good job of seeing exactly where to track the motion at. So this should be okay. We see the contrast between his head and the dark rocks. So I'm going to hover over this track point until the cursor changes. I can see the little compass there, or the 4 arrows. Click, move that, and I'm going to position this right on the top of his head. And then you can adjust the size of these boxes to basically get an idea for the area that it's going to continuously search for to try to maintain that tracking area. So you don't have to make them too big. If you make them too big, the computer is going to have a hard time knowing where to look, and it might kind of bog down your system. So just if you need to make adjustments to the boxes, you can, just so it has a better idea of where to look to find that little piece that it's going to track. This looks pretty good for me here. Once I get that the way I like it, I'm going back over to my tracker window, and we see what looks like a little play button. This is Analyze Forward. Go ahead and click on that, and you'll notice it did an okay job. However, as we started with the track point at the top of his head, but once he goes from that dark background with the rocks behind him to the sky, it gets a little confused. So it goes from the top of his head to basically the middle, the center of his head. This is common. It is very normal for the tracker to not do it perfectly the first time, especially. So sometimes you have to go in there manually and tweak some things. Now, I'm going to go to the point where it changes. And actually, I'm noticing now, I'm going to zoom in a little further, it actually has changed before it got to the edge of the rock. So if you get to a point and you say, okay, I want to move it a little bit, you can, I've gone there manually by going through with a playhead, but then I can click and move it, and then you can go analyze one frame forward. You can do this one at a time, and you'll see this is where it's starting to get a little bit lost here. So I'm just going to click and drag it back up, and then I'm going to analyze one frame forward, move it back up to the edge of his head, and now it jumped way over to the right. So I'm going to move this Okay, once you've done that, you're going to go up to Layer and then New, and you're going to create a null object. I'm not going to go into details of what null objects are. Feel free to look them up on your own. The summary of it is that it's a layer. There's nothing there. There's no shape. There's no text. There's no video. There's nothing there. It's a layer that you can control and then have it control other layers, essentially, without it showing anything. Okay, so I've created the null object. I'm going to click back on the video layer. I'm going to come back over to the tracker window and click on Edit Target. This is where I'm going to select this null. It's titled null3. I'm going to press OK, and then I'm going to press Apply. And then it's going to ask me to apply dimensions X and Y. Yes, press OK. And now the tracking data that we got from this video has been applied to this null object. The reason we want to do that is because now I can use the null object to control other layers. So in the example, I had the line extend and then the text fade in. So we're going to go ahead and make that now. And we're going to put that into a pre-comp layer and then parent the null object to that pre-comp layer. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, so I'm going to start with, let's go back to the very beginning. Actually, we'll start about right here. And I'm going to go to Layer, New, and New Shape Layer. I'm going to click on my pen tool, and I'm just going to make a line, clicking once by his head, and then once over here, and it makes a line. Now I'm going to go to Layer, New, Text Layer, and I'm going to type in his name, Stellan Skarsgård. I hope I spelled that right. And I'm going to click on the selection tool so I can move. I had caps lock on, so I'm going to turn off caps lock. That's why I wasn't showing it for a second there. I'm going to move this into position so it looks something like this. Okay, but I want the line and the text layer to be pre-composed. So I'm going to select both of them, Again, if you don't know how to do that, I clicked on one, I hold down Shift and I clicked on the other, and then you right click or control click on the selection and go to pre-compose. And I'll just title this title. I press OK. And now you'll see this is what it looks like when it's just stationary. That title, it's not moving, it's not tracking to his head. It just stays there. So now this title layer, I need to make the parent the null. So you can, where it says parent and link, with my title layer selected, I can manually select null, and you'll see now the tracking data is moving this title layer. Another way to do this, just so you're aware, I'm gonna Command Z, I'm gonna undo that parent. See this little spiral right here? That's called a pick whip. And then another, just so you're aware that sometimes it's easier to work this way, I can click and hold and drag on the pick whip and drag it over to this title layer. That parented the title layer onto null, which actually is backwards. I'm gonna pick whip from the title layer to the null, and you'll see it automatically makes the null the parent layer. So just so you're aware, it's called the pick whip tool. Okay, now when I did this, the position of this title is not in the right spot. It's too high above his head. I'm not going to adjust the position on this title layer. I'm actually just going to go ahead and adjust the anchor point. So I've selected the title, and the shortcut is just by pressing A, but also show if you toggle down and go transform, you'll see the anchor point here. This is where I'm going to move it kind of closer. I can move it anywhere I want, and a little bit closer to that point on his head. Now it'll follow him. Now you notice it still was a little jumpy in a few areas. I would go in and clean those up manually, but we're not going to worry about that now. So that's the basics of motion tracking. Now we're still going to clean this up, add a few other effects. So I'm going to go into this title pre-comp layer, I'm going to double click on it, and I want that line to extend like I showed in the example. So if I go to contents, and then I've toggled down the arrows here, and where it says add, I'm going to add a trim paths. So if you remember what trim paths do, if I see the end, let me click out of this, it manually, I know it's kind of hard to see, let me zoom in a little bit, there we go. So it's easier to see. I am scrolling back and forth to control the length of this line. Okay, so I want it to start invisible, where it's at 0%, and I'm going to click on the stopwatch for this end value of the trim path. Click on that. I'm going to move it forward, let's say 1.5 seconds, and I'm going to drag this to 100%. So it's added the keyframes and animated that change. So that wasn't me using my mouse. That was the animation just pressing spacebar to play. Okay, and then after it extends, I want the text to appear, to basically fade in. So for it to fade in, I have to start with it being at 0% opacity. The shortcut for opacity is T. So if I select the text layer and just press T, that's the shortcut. It opens up opacity. I'm going to click on the stopwatch, but I'm going to start it at 0, and then a little further ahead. And it was not at 0. You have to be careful. It was at 1%. I have to make sure it's at 0. And a little further ahead, I will increase it to 100%. So now this is what we have. The line extends and the text fades in. Now, as always, I would recommend selecting all these keyframes and do function and F9, which turns them into easy eased keyframes. If you don't want to use the keyboard shortcut, right click or control click on those selections, go to Keyframe Assistant and press Easy Ease. All right, so it makes the motion a little smoother. All right, so that is the end result. We have the text. The line extends as he's walking and the text fade in. Now, right now it is starting right at the very beginning. I want to delay this some. So to do that, I'm going to select this title layer. I'm just going to move it over. So the beginning of it comes in a little bit later when he's about right here. So now he's going to walk and the line starts a little after that. So it's a little smoother after his head appears over the rocks. Okay, and that is the basics for motion tracking and adding a title that will track, let's say, an actor's head. There are other things you can do with motion tracking. I encourage you to do some YouTube searches for other tutorials that might be a little bit more advanced if it's something that you're into. But at the very least, this basic technique is what could be helpful specifically for title sequences. All right, thanks for watching, and let me know if you have any questions, and I'll try to get back to you. Thanks.